A few years ago, I stumbled onto a link on Reddit discussing the existence of an entire city beneath Mount Shasta in California. This place wasn't just a cave or a cavern where people could live, it was an entire thriving urban sprawl with futuristic buildings, culture, and an alien-like people. These beings lived below the Earth's crust, away from prying eyes, in the safety of their subterranean city. Tales of villages made of gold, mummified giants, UFOs flying into the mountain, and even the remnants of a lost civilization known as Lemuria. The list of oddities surrounding Mount Shasta go on and on. So naturally that got me thinking, are there other underground subterranean cities hiding beneath our noses, or rather our feet? Places deep in the darkness below the soil and rock, hidden from sunlight as we know it. So today in this video, I will be examining the Subterranean City Rabbit Hole and diving deep into all the things regarding it. I'll be going over several different places that are theorized to house these underground urban sprawls. And I'll be talking about their theories, their findings, and where they came from. From alien life living below Mount Shasta, to entire government-funded cities for the rich to live in during a nuclear apocalypse, to a secret tunnel system that connects the entire USA together and is used for nefarious activities, and even to Hollow Earth and the existence of Agartha and the Mole People. This is the Subterranean Cities Rabbit Hole, and we're going to be diving into it, or rather digging into it, in this video today. So if that sounds interesting in the slightest, grab you a bucket of popcorn, grab a Dr. Pepper, sit back and relax, and let's see what horrible, disgusting, or crazy things are lurking beneath the Earth's surface, and let's explore these underground cities. Mount Shasta is a beautiful area located in the northern part of California. And if you've ever been there, you know just how awe-inspiringly gorgeous the scenery is. I've been lucky enough to go 2 times in the past couple years, and it's seriously beautiful. And if you had no idea about the alleged strange happenings beneath the mountain, you would think it's just another beautiful peak that we have in the USA. But before I get into the legends of the city that's there, the aliens that live there, and Telos as a whole, I want to talk about some other strange happenings and some mythos regarding Mount Shasta and the lore that it's always had. Legends from the local Klamath tribes have been talking about this region for thousands of years. They claim that Mount Shasta is the home of the spirit Chief Skell, who came down from the heavens and perched himself on the top of Shasta. This chief would have a war with another spirit named Lau, who was the below-world spirit. The underworld spirit himself lived on the nearby peak of Mount Mazama, and the two spirits atop their respective mountains would throw boulders and lava and ash and smoke at each other, which probably represents the explosions of these volcanoes in the past. But these legends of spirits battling on top of the mountains, they go back even further and possibly even stranger if the accounts are to be believed. According to a man named Guy Ballard, who by the way founded a religious sect, or CULT, I don't know if I can say that on this channel or not, called the I Am movement. He allegedly was hiking around Mount Shasta in the early 1930s when he ran into a guy on the trail. Now, the guy he ran into wasn't just your run-of-the-mill person. No, Guy Ballard claims that he ran into the Count of Saint Germain, which, if you don't know about this, it is a crazy, historical legend, but I'll talk about it now. The Count of Saint Germain was a name given to an unnamed explorer that existed way back in the day. This guy was a European adventurer who dabbled into the esoteric, the occult, and he longed for traveling and exploring the great wide world. No one knows the real identity of this count, but allegedly he was friends with Mozart and Casanova and Voltaire and all of those kind of people, and he was at kind of the highest part of society, and he dealt with the arts and alchemy and traveling, and in many esoteric cults, the Count of Saint Germain is a prominent figure. Again, the real identity of the Count of Saint Germain is unknown. Some people think he's an exiled prince from Transylvania. Some think he's some kind of random European royalty. Some think he's fake. But whatever the case is, Guy Ballard said he ran into him while hiking around Mount Shasta one day in the 1930s. And after that meeting, Guy Ballard was enlightened enough to create the I Am movement. Very believable story, Guy. Very believable story. But even still, beyond the fact that there are ancient Native American stories about this mountain, and that apparently Guy Ballard ran into the Count of Saint Germain here, there are darker and deeper theories below the mountain itself. And now it is time to talk about Telos, or Telos. T-E-L-O-S. I'm sorry if I'm saying that right. There's no rules to this, people. I don't know what I'm talking about. The origins of an actual civilization existing below the mountain go back even further than tales of Telos, and they might be rooted in some sort of fact. You see, back in 1904, a British prospector named J.C. Brown was out mining for gold around Mount Shasta. While he was doing this, he allegedly uncovered this chasm that went very far deep into the ground and very far back. The cave itself sloped downwards for about 11 miles, or so J.C. said, and at the end of those 11 miles, he discovered, in his own words, an underground village, completely cut off from the sun. There was no clouds, no sun, it was underground, and it was full of very strange things. JC claims that the village itself was filled with gold and trinkets and houses, pottery and blankets and things like that, and also things like shields and weaponry. But even stranger and very unsettlingly, he discovered what he claims to be giant mummified remains of humans just laying in this cave in this underground village 11 miles away from the surface. After a quick measuring, JC said that these mummified humans reached about 10 feet tall, or about 3 meters for those of you that don't speak American. Yes, that was a joke, I understand. You get it. Anyways, after finding this underground village and these giant dead humans, J.C. Brown was pretty terrified, so he ran out of the cave and he never told anybody what he found. After this, JC's story goes pretty cold for about 30 years, when all of a sudden, JC himself tells another explorer named John C. Root about what he found 30 years prior. John Root then put together an expedition of 80 people. He got a team together, and he decided that he was going to go out and find this underground village and plunder the gold and find these giant people. Because surely with J.C. Brown and himself and 80 people, they could find it and they could do something about it. J.C. Brown was on board with this until the day of the expedition came. J.C. Brown did not show up the first day of the expedition, and not only that, he was never seen or heard from again, and his name falls completely out of the historical record. So if J.C. Brown's story was even real to begin with, he completely just invalidated it by not showing up to his own expedition. What are you doing? But finding giant mummified human remains, again, is not the strangest thing about Mount Shasta, and we are getting deeper physically into the mountain now. Moving past, a simple village underground into the gigantic city of Telos. Finding mummified remains in villages inside of caves is not a unique thing to Shasta either. If you're interested in that kind of thing, go check out the Lore Lodge's video on the Lovelock Cave. Great video, by the way, dude. If you're watching this, you're probably not, but go check out that video. It's fantastic. But let's get into the strangeness of the city of Telos and the lore that surrounds it as it exists underneath Mount Shasta. Okay, for this part of the video, I'm really gonna have to ask you to put your tinfoil hats on and tighten them down real tight, because we're gonna get crazy. It is rumored that beneath Mount Shasta is a hidden city called Telos, the City of Light. The people who are said to inhabit this City of Light are the Lemurians, which come from a lost civilization on Earth called Lemuria. Now I'll discuss Telos and its city and all that stuff in a second, but first I want to talk about the Lemurians and Lemuria for those of you that don't know. If you watched my Beyond the Ice Wall series, you probably have heard of Lemuria. If you haven't, I'm not going to make you go watch it. I'm not that kind of YouTuber. I'll talk about it here. Lemuria was a potential and theoretical continent landmass that was said to exist many years ago that connected Africa, India, and Australia together. This theory was pretty prevalent in the 20th century, and the reason for its existence is simple. The bones of lemurs were found in India and Madagascar, and they matched pretty much exactly, but the only problem is those two landmasses are not connected at all. There's a giant ocean between them. So how did the exact same lemurs get to the exact same islands? Well, Philip Sclater thought that Lemuria existed, and he posited that a giant landmass once connected all three of those places. The theory of Lemuria existing is not rooted in fact. There's no landmass that was there, and it was also widely spread before the idea of continental drift came into the scientific community, so it's since been discarded. But those people that believe in Lemuria say that the continent itself eventually sunk and disappeared, and the remnants of the people that used to live there ended up spread out across the world, and some of them here under Mount Shasta. That's where they ended up. Anyways, years later in 1905, a man named Frederick Spencer Oliver produced a work called A Dweller on Two Planets. In that publication, this guy claimed that the people who were from Lemuria did not go extinct, they indeed existed, and further than that, they now live in a gigantic city beneath Mount Shasta. Oliver claimed that the Lemurians lived in this interconnected, gigantic, futuristic style city that they constructed beneath the mountain itself, and that the way you can get to the city is by an intricate series of tunnels and corridors in the rock. Inside of Telos, this gigantic city, all kinds of buildings and commerce exists. Stores, living quarters, bejeweled pathways, carpeted hallways, and pretty much anything you need to survive, except it's just underground. He goes on to claim that the Lemurians almost never come out from under the ground, and when they do, they're seen standing around the perimeter of Shasta, wearing strange white cloaks, and appearing to be tall, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned. Later on, in 1931, another book was released by Harvey Spencer Lewis, talking about the Lemurians of Mount Shasta. For some reason, people keep writing books and publishing them about Lemurians in the mountain. Harvey Spencer Lewis himself would go on to found an esoteric group cult known as the Ancient Mystical Order Rosicrucius, or Amorc for short. And the belief that Lemurians existed and the continent of Lemuria existed and they now live under Mount Shasta is a core belief in their system. And in fact, many different esoteric cults believe in the Lemurian theory, and they believe that these Lemurians live underneath Mount Shasta right now in a futuristic city, and they've kind of transcended humanity. They don't get sick. They don't have financial struggles. They live in this utopia of sorts, and it's all underneath this mountain that I've been to twice. In the local areas around Mount Shasta, it's kind of a running joke to talk about this city and the Lemurians. Some people might not have heard about it, but the people that have been there their entire lives have likely dealt with this. Many people from the outside claim that the mountain has spiritual healing properties, and that going there can connect your spirit to a higher level of existence. And as such, around the mountain, there are several spiritual retreats that you can go to get in tune with nature and all that stuff, and maybe even communicate with the high frequencies and energies that the Lemurians produce from their city under the mountain. Now, people that believe in this city and the Lemurians and all that, they argue how you can actually get into that city from the mountain. Obviously, it's underneath the mountain, they agree on that, but the entrances are debated. Some people posit that there are secret tunnels that are carpeted and bejeweled that lead directly to the city. Some people believe that vortexes and openings in space-time are the only way to get there. Some people believe that simple caves lead right down in there, kind of like a mini hollow earth. And others think you can only go there if the Lemurians bring you in. And if you find yourself being a victim to a mole person attacking you on your way down to Agartha, you're gonna want to have somebody on your side that you can trust. Somebody might be Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 attorneys that operate in all 50 states. So you know you'll have someone to back you up wherever you're at. Your injury could be worth millions, and Morgan & Morgan do not settle for lowball offers. Insurance companies often lowball their their clients. So it's very important to Morgan & Morgan that they fight to get you the money you deserve if you become their client. They achieved significant verdicts in the past couple months for victims that were involved in life-altering crashes, like $12 million in Florida, which is 34 times the highest insurance offer, or $26 million in Philadelphia, which is 40 times the highest insurance offer. And the best part is, it's absolutely free unless you win. If you ever got seriously injured, your case could be worth millions, and you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's so easy, and you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/spoogly, which can be found in the description or by scanning the QR code on your screen from your phone's camera. Thank you to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. In one case, back in 2009, a massive chasm opened on the side of Mount Shasta. This chasm led to a cave that was around 60 feet tall and 15 feet wide, and it went back pretty deep into the mountainside. Some witnesses that saw this hole claimed that it's not a natural thing. It looked to be dug out by people, or beings, Lemurians in this case. Soon after the hole happened, it was pretty much instantly filled in and covered up by the Forest Service. And the official story that they released was that people were mining for gold nearby and it caused this hole to cave in, and they covered it up because they didn't want to have the liability of people falling in. Which, that's a great story and all, right? So it's a good cover-up if you're a part of this theory. There's actually an entire documentary about this hole opening and about how it connects to the Lemurians, so I'll just leave that in the description if you want to watch all that. I can't talk about it here. It's too much. The Lemurians themselves do sometimes leave Telos and they come outside to the outskirts of Shasta. Hikers have claimed to encounter them and witness them walking around. Again, they're said to be tall and kind of ethereal in the way that they carry themselves, not like humans. Several different religions and cults, like I mentioned earlier, do follow this doctrine of Lemuria existing, and a lot of people think that the cradle of humanity was actually the sunken continent of Lemuria and not from Mesopotamia like we've been taught. Now, how they ended up under a giant mountain in Northern California, I don't know, but I can't deny the strangeness that surrounds the peak. There have been several UFO sightings and missing 411 cases and things like that around the mountain as well. People claiming that they see flying saucers go directly into the side of the peak and hikers disappearing and ending up in different spots. It's all very strange, and there is an air of mystery, you could say. Whatever the case is, I've been there 2 times. I didn't see anything strange, but maybe the Lemurians didn't think I was evolved enough to see them. I don't know. But that was the city of Telos and the Lemurian theory and all of that wrapped into one giant, ugly, disgusting conspiracy ball about the city that's under Mount Shasta. But next I want to dive deeper into this rabbit hole, and I want to discuss the history, the explorations, the works, and the theory regarding Agartha and other subterranean cities that existed in the old world. The idea of Agartha and Hollow Earth goes back centuries. This wonderland, this proverbial paradise lodged in the core of the earth, it's said to be enlightened in a way, and the strife that affects us in society doesn't really affect people in Hollow Earth. Sickness and death and sadness as we know it are not even real there. It's kind of like heaven. It's probably the most popularized underground city theory that there is, and that's why it deserves a spot on this rabbit hole. But the methods of entry to get to Agartha are disputed and even argued about amongst its believers. The most commonly accepted theory is that somewhere deep in the Himalayan mountain range, there are small chasms that lead directly to the entrance of Agartha. In fact, over the course of history, several different key investigations from military leaders and world leaders to find these entrances to Agartha have occurred, and people have even gotten lost in the Himalayas trying to find it. And even sometimes entire search parties were never seen again. Did they find Agartha, or did the Yeti kill them? We don't know. So some people think it's caves and caverns, some people think it's only portals and vortexes that open up, similar to Telos under Mount Shasta. And some people say that you can only astrally project there, and it's not really a physical place you can dig down into. Agartha pretty much takes the Telos theory and multiplies it by 500 bajillion. It represents this unknown, esoteric, beyond human place, this divine utopia surrounded by lush vegetation, creatures of prehistoric proportions, and things like that. It sounds perfect to me. Now, I will be releasing an entire video discussing Agartha, the Hollow Earth, the literature, the works, the theories, the expeditions to find it, all of that in that video. It's gonna get its standalone video. I don't want to spoil that here, so that's all you're gonna get. But it definitely deserves a spot in this video. Now, subterranean cities and bunkers and living quarters like that can be found all across the world, not just in the USA like I've been focusing on. In my research for this video, I discovered many strange works of literature and many places in this world that I didn't even know existed personally that have been found and uncovered to be underground. In 1895, a man named John Lloyd wrote a book called the Agartha, The End of the Earth. John Lloyd was a pharmacist and a writer in his time, and this book that he wrote follows a man on his extraordinary journey to essentially Hollow Earth. The man in the book is named I Am the Man, that's his pseudonym, and he claims that he traveled to the inner workings of Earth and he found this massive, majestical city and landscape. He talks about his encounters with strange beings and weird entities and creatures with wings and legs and multiple eyes and gigantic proportions. According to the guy in the book, he was captured by members of a secret society whose goal was to cover up this Hollow Earth city, and he's essentially held hostage by these secret societies so he doesn't spill the beans. Eventually, this man in the story is taken to a large cave in Kentucky, where, if you don't know, Mammoth Cave resides. The Mammoth Cave is, as far as I know, as a Kentucky native, it is the biggest cave network in the world that's been discovered. And I Am the Man is taken by these secret society members on a huge journey down through the Mammoth Cave into this subterranean Hollow Earth place. Whether or not John Lloyd wrote this book based on like a drug trip, or if he literally experienced this, we don't know. Some people think that this guy, I Am the Man, is literally just a stand-in for the author, and he actually experienced this. Obviously, that's probably poppycock and it didn't happen, but I'm gonna buy that book because it sounds really entertaining. And it is not the only work in history that talks about adventuring into the hollowness of Earth, finding strange creatures, and exploring these gigantic cities. Where these ideas are coming from and who is starting them is the entire topic of this video. Usually things like this are rooted in some sort of fact, whether it's blown out of proportion or whether it's just made up and people believe it because they told themselves it over and over again. Whatever the case is, these people are getting these ideas from somewhere. And this is before the internet, so I don't know. Even well-known places, like the Grand Canyon in the USA, has its own speculations surrounding it of having underground cities. Several hikers in the history of the park have reported finding openings and cave openings and ruins of cities and houses in the sides of the cliffs. These places are in the out-of-bounds areas, the places where you're not allowed to go in the park, and they're said to be secret and hidden on purpose. It gets even weirder when newspaper clippings like the one I'm showing you right now exist, claiming that these people found caverns full of old structures and gold and pots and things like that in the Grand Canyon. These items seem to be of Egyptian origin. But how did Egyptian artifacts get into a crevice in a secret part of the Grand Canyon? Maybe Agartha, maybe the underground tunnels, maybe it's all connected. Other places, like Malta, for example, in Europe, they have odd underground cities and mythos around it as well. In fact, most of Malta used to be traversable via underground networks of buildings and cities. There's old newspaper reports of people getting lost down there and the holes being covered up because they were never found. All of these different places, all of these different works, these different stories, these books, these strange caverns in different areas that seem to have ruins of an old society, it all wraps up together in a neat little bow for this subterranean cities theory. And it's not just a USA thing, like I said, it's all across the world. Where does the obsession for creating these underground living quarters come from? And why do we not know about any of them? What did the old world know about that wasn't carried over into the new one? After all, the famous saying goes that the victors write the histories, and maybe they don't want us to know everything. But next, I want to dive further into the rabbit hole, and I want to discuss the government cities and facilities that have been secretly constructed under our noses this entire time, and that they've been lying about. Yay! The United States government is known far and wide for its open and honest behavior with its own citizens. And possibly one of the best examples of this is the hundreds of underground bunkers and many civilizations that they've constructed to save themselves in the event of a nuclear war. There are several different instances of facilities like this being constructed underground, but the main instance is a facility known as Mount Weather in Virginia, with other notable examples being the Raven Rock Complex, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and the Greenbrier Hotel. Mount Weather is a massive, federally funded bunker. Located in Virginia, it was meant to house Congress, government officials, and the president during times of a world-ending warfare event. It has a hospital, a water treatment facility, a diesel generator, a waste disposal system, and food that could keep hundreds of people alive for months at a time. It is also the sole location of the main FEMA emergency system. The main system was put here so the president would have access to it in times of crisis. The complex itself is extremely large and extensive, and it kind of works like an underground city, and that's just what it's meant to do. However, Mount Weather is not the only underground city that the government has constructed to save itself and leave us to die over the years. Back in the 1950s, amidst the Cold War and the post-World War II scares, the USA decided to build a secret bunker system to survive a nuclear winter right under the noses of all of us. The construction of this secret bunker would be under the Greenbrier Hotel. No citizens knew about it. It was not available to the hotel workers that were working there while it was being constructed. It was all completely secret. Kind of like the Russians' base in the Stranger Things Season 3 episodes. Again, this bunker was constructed to house Congress, high-ranking officials, and the wealthy elites in that area, and keep them safe during war times. It was hidden and kept silent from the public until 1992, when the Washington Post, of all publications, released a groundbreaking exposing story on the bunker existing, and since then, the government officials were like, yeah, it does exist. You caught us. It has been since decommissioned and is available to tour as we speak. The Greenbrier itself is a giant network of huge liminal space-like tunnels and rooms and facilities. And again, it is a complete underground city. Maybe not like Telos is under Mount Shasta, but a city nonetheless. And I don't even have time to discuss all the missile silos and nuclear silos and hidden bunkers across the flatlands and the mountain lands and all that. It's a whole deal. There are much darker things, much more nefarious things, deeper in the ground beneath our cities. In the damp expanses of metal and dirt and the Earth's crust, beyond the eyesight of humans, is an alleged secret network of tunnels that connects the entire USA together. And what happens in these tunnels and who lives in these tunnels is up for debate. That's right, we're talking about the tunnels that might lead to Agartha, and the mole people that live there. Welcome to the Spookly channel. Now, there's a couple ways you can look at this secret underground tunnel system. You can look through one lens and be a realist and say, you know, it obviously does not exist, and if it did, it's just abandoned subway tunnels. If you look at it through that lens, then you might be able to wrap your head around those tunnels being used for nefarious activities like trafficking, smuggling, and things like that. The other lens is more conspiratorial, and you can say these tunnels were constructed to lead to specific hidden cities across the USA that exist underground, and that the elites and the powers that be use those tunnels to travel so they can't be seen above ground. And there's a secret third lens that you can look at these tunnels through and maybe believe that they lead to Hollow Earth and Agartha and the city therein, and that mole people inhabit them. Who knows about all that? I'm not trying to summon Wendigoon, but there might be giants down there. I know that joke's overused, and I apologize sincerely. It is worth noting that the ex-president John Quincy Adams believed that the Earth was hollow and it was inhabited by mole people. Half-human, half-mole hybrids that barely came up for air and that lived mostly in the dark expanses of soil. Thousands of people vanish each year in cities in the USA without a trace. And these tunnel networks, these abandoned rail systems, these sewer systems, could be where they end up falling or being taken. In a darker twist, as I mentioned earlier, these tunnels could be used to traffic people. They could also be used to smuggle nefarious items like drugs and weaponry to different individuals. There's no telling how extensive the labyrinth of abandoned subway rails and sewer tunnels is, but since we don't know, we can assume it's pretty big. I find it interesting that some people take this mole people theory and this underground tunnel system theory, and they connect it to the elites, per se, the ones that pull the strings, the rich people, the owners of every company. And they say that those people use these tunnels to travel. That way they don't have to risk air travel or being seen by the common people like us. I mean, think about it. Without looking it up off the top of your head, describe to me what the owner of BlackRock looks like, or the owner of Vanguard. Tell me the name of the person that owns Johnson & Johnson, or the person that owns Kellogg's. You can't do it. These people that control everything and pull the strings, and they pretty much own every company, or every subsidiary at least, they're nameless, and that's where they want to be. Perhaps they also want to be faceless, and they use these tunnels as their way of transportation. Obviously, I'm going to be a realist here. These tunnels are not confirmed to exist to travel, all the way across the country. Obviously, there's abandoned sewer systems and abandoned rail systems in cities, and they are definitely being used as drug dens or hideouts, and even, in sad cases, human trafficking, and that's true, they are. But where do we draw the line between real horror and the horror that is unimaginable? What if the reason it's unimaginable to us is because we've just never seen it, and we can't imagine what we haven't seen? Maybe there are mole people that live there. Maybe John Quincy Adams was right. Maybe Agartha is connected by these tunnels. Maybe the elites control the world from underneath us. I don't know. Maybe the Underminer from The Incredibles is down there. I have no idea. I mean, the public didn't even know about the Greenbrier bunker until like 50 years after it was made, and they only told us about it because it got broken in a story. Who's to say the government's not hiding more tunnels and more cities underground and more bunkers? We just can't say. But obviously they are, right? So in this video, we have discussed a futuristic city of pale-skinned people that live under Mount Shasta, secret government societies that live underground and that travel without being seen, traffickers using these cities and tunnels underground, shady business happening underneath them, and God knows what else happening below the Earth's crust in these underground facilities. Things I've discussed about today are mere, happenstance. We don't know about any of this for sure, but that's just the case with most of the things in this country. You just never know. There's so much secrecy, so much smoke, so much mirrors hiding us from the truth. And that's how they want it to be. They want us to be divided. They want us to be confused. And those very same people that might be using these tunnels to travel, they enjoy us not knowing what's happening. They get a kick out of it. What goes on underneath our feet is never really known. Those random noises you hear sometimes, the earthquakes that shake ever so slightly, the people that vanish in the thousands across the USA. Maybe these underground cities have something to do with that and they're being held there against their will. Maybe mole people live in those cities. Maybe there is a giant city underneath Mount Shasta that exists. But what happens away from the sun, beneath the roots, in the soil, in the rocks, we will never know. But whatever is so disgusting, so abhorrent, that it feels the need to hide underground from us, it probably shouldn't be tampered with, and it probably shouldn't exist. There's a metaphor about life in there somewhere. That's all I gotta say. That's it for the video. I hope you did enjoy me diving into these underground cities and tunnels, subterranean rabbit hole thing. This was kind of a one-off video. I hope you do enjoy it. And I really enjoyed kind of researching into the Telos theory and the underground tunnels theory and the mole people theory. It's all pretty fun. Just a nice little brain exercise. Obviously, I don't believe in a lot of it, but maybe John Quincy was onto something. Maybe he was. I don't know. Thank you for watching to the end, though. If you did enjoy, please leave a like. That's the best way to help out the channel. Thank you all so much for the amazing support that you've given me on this channel. I love just diving into these random topics, and you all seem to love it as well. Let me know what else I should talk about down below in the comments. While you're down there, you can check out my Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels, and stuff like that if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. I love and appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.